project was 2 years in the making. I arrived in Hawaii. I'm from New York originally, and I arrived just almost exactly 2 years ago. And I started taking dance lessons with Mary Jo Freshley at the Halla Dance Studio for about 8 months. And it was during that time that I was doing research at the Center for Korean Studies. The Halla Dance archives are housed there. And many hours of conversations with Mary Jo Freshley and starting to interview former students who were still around. The project started picking up. And most of the work happened this past year. No, actually, this is my first documentary film. I don't have a background in film. My training is actually in painting and visual arts. The question was, did I come here with the intent to make a documentary? And no, when I came to Hawaii, I wanted to do some kind of project. Considering my background, I had made videos and other kinds of art projects, but I hadn't made a documentary before. But I wanted to do something with Huhm's story. And it was really through conversations with Mary Jo Freshley, and she said to me in early conversation, we really need a documentary on Huhm, and we really need to do something with this archive. And so it developed that way. The question was, what was some of the challenges? Well, the greatest challenge for me was, first of all, uncovering a lot of the history in the past, especially telling the story of someone that I didn't know personally. And her family and her close friends are not, many of them are not around anymore, and a lot of her family, it was very difficult to try to even get contacts for them. So that was very challenging. And also, I think it was a great pairing with the second film on Untold Stories, because a lot of this is silence. A lot of these stories are silenced from these generations, and they didn't talk about it. So even her former students and even people who are around who were able to speak for her couldn't speak for a certain side of her. And so that was my greatest challenge in trying to understand her as a character and where she came from. I had to do a lot of work in other ways to try to fill that part of the story. I guess what I would really love for anyone watching it to take away with is trying to really get a sense of this woman's spirit, and to get a sense that we all have stories to tell and we all have valuable experiences. And she wasn't a world famous person. She was famous, she was well known, she was important for this community. And all of us are important to some kind of community. And I wanted to bring that out and really highlight this one woman's story. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Mr. Ryan Kawamoto, the director for Untold Stories.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to watch this very important documentary. I'm going to actually turn the mic over to our to Carol Hayashino, the JCCH president, and she will be moderating our question and answer session.
We have a very brief Q&A panel that I thought we would discuss, so you can get to know some of the people behind the film and behind this effort to capture the stories of the World War II internment of Japanese in Hawaii. But first of all, before I forget, I also once again want to acknowledge the film sponsors, because we could not have done it without their support. the National Park Service, Island Insurance, Gerbode Foundation, and the Honolulu JACL. I also want to acknowledge the members of the JCCH board and the staff and the volunteers who attended today, because it was the work of these volunteers that first discovered the wonderful stories behind this film. So. And also, before we get to a question with Ryan and Jane and Betsy, I want to acknowledge people in the audience who are still here, who were interviewed in this film. And I know Doris is right here in the film. And there are other people who appeared in the film, but I want to especially acknowledge Brian Nia. Brian, stand. Brian appeared in the film several times. He was with the project from the get-go. So let me start with Ryan. Ryan, you said this took 3 years in the making. During that process, just tell us, share with us, the most challenging aspect of putting this together.
Okay, the most challenging aspect of making this film is the story of internment in Hawaii is primarily an Issei story. And of course, by the time that we had set out to produce this film, there's basically all the Issei that we wanted to interview had passed away. In fact, most of the Nisei that we wanted to interview were very old and had been passing away at that point. Also, there were very little photographs, motion picture film footage, or anything that we could even use visually to be in a visual form like a documentary. So the biggest challenge was trying to get that on screen, and we used a lot of historical reenactments and creative ways of trying to tell this story based on the oral histories. One way that we did find a lot of our material was actually archived in the Resource Center at the Japanese Cultural Center. And what by that I mean is the story of Otokichi Ozaki and the translations of Yasutaro Soga and the oral histories of Sam Nishimura, all needed to build that and all housed at the JCCH.
You know, I will add that when Ryan first described how he was going to tell the stories of the former internees, I was a little bit nervous, but boy, Ryan was the right filmmaker to do this film, wasn't he? The sensitivity, the professionalism, you were the right guy. So thank you so much, Ryan. Ryan made reference to the Japanese Cultural Center's Resource Center. The Resource Center is really one of the best kept secrets in town. It's an archive. It's not only archives. It's a special collections that captures really the history of Japanese in Hawaii and contains photographs, memoirs, original documents, a video, a number of really valuable historical information. And the Resource Center for many, many years has been until recently, has been staffed and supported primarily by volunteers, very dedicated volunteers. Jane Kuwahara, who many of you know, and Betsy Young. They appear on the film credit as executive producers. And it was almost 15 years ago, wasn't it, Jane, when a phone call came in, and Jane fielded the call. Where is Honouliuli? Jane, remember. And that began the search, and that began the adventure, to search for Honouliuli and to search for the stories of Hawaii's confinement sites. So Jane, how do you feel today? Now, from that first phone call to today, tell me about the process.
All we wanted to do at the beginning was just find Honouliuli. That was our goal. And to have it come to where it is today, where there are supporters at the federal level, the state level, local organizations, grassroots level, is just incredible. It's just mind-blowing. And as I watched the film, I said, Ryan is the right person to do this, because the internment story is a human story. And if you cannot put that across, then you can't connect to it. Because that's how we connected in the Resource Center. Once we started to read Otokichi Ozaki's letters and his wife's letters, and how they were torn apart and they were trying to get back together, that's when it hit me. I said, this could have happened to my family. It's a human story. And that's what we wanted to pass on to the students, the present generation and future generations, because if you know that this could have happened to your family, then you'll never forget, and you'll ever be vigilant so that it doesn't happen in the future to anyone else's family. And that's, you know.
Well, thank you. I mean, it is a story about a community, and it's really taken a community to bring this story forward and to the public eye. And I do also want to acknowledge Senator Will Aspero and Senator Carol Fukunaga, who is also seated in the audience today. They are very much a part of this story and our success to date. They have brought in the state support that we need to help preserve Honouli'uli for now and the future. So I wanted to acknowledge you as well. Thank you. So Betsy Young, Betsy's a retired educator, continues to educate, outreach to the schools, public schools, lead tours into Honouli'uli. So Betsy, tell us about some of the educational activities surrounding the confinement sites in Honouli'uli.
Well, coming up in February will be our next Day of Remembrance, February 10th, is it? And if you come to the Japanese Cultural Center that day for our ceremony, at that time you'll be able to sign up for a tour of the Honouli'uli Gulch. And we really, really would like to encourage you to do that, because there is nothing that can compare to the understanding of this story as to experiencing that sense of place. The isolation, the hardship, the jigokudani that these people experience. And really, we really would like to thank Ryan. He really put together a phenomenal story with so many personal stories and so much of the detail that you now know about the almost forgotten story, the Hawaii internment story.
Thank you, Betsy. And thank you, Jane, for all your work. You know, as I said, this is really a product of a community coming together to preserve, to tell the stories, to capture the stories, and to share the stories. And I know Ryan had a whole team of people behind him, too. So, Ryan, tell us about the team of people you pulled together to get this film together for us.
Well, I'd like to just acknowledge those who are in attendance today in the audience. I can see my director of photography for the historical reenactments, David Sato, if you can please stand up. Marilyn Mick, who was our line producer. Laura Sandy, who did the costumes. Let's see, who else where, and I can't even see this far from here. In fact, anybody who was on the crew, I can't even see who's here and who's not. Cedric Fujita, who did all of our production design, all those 1940s cars and whatnot. In fact, if you were on the crew, please stand up right now and be acknowledged, because I can't even see who's here and who's not here. If you were on the crew for this film, please stand up. Please stand up. If you were an actor, did voiceover work, or were an interviewee and we didn't acknowledge you prior, please stand up right now. If you are in the film at all, please stand up if I did not acknowledge you. All right. Excellent. There we go. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so all you guys are now part of the JCCH Ohana. Okay, so number one, we really need your help to help us join our effort to preserve Honouli'uli and to preserve Hawaii's confinement sites. You know, Jane and Betsy, we're going to be going to Kauai next month, looking for Kalaheo Stockade. We have a hunter, we have local people who are going to take us up, and we're going to try to find the precise location. We're going to continue to work with national parks to preserve all the other confinement sites, but we need to tell the story. If you're interested in taking a tour of Honouli'uli, please check our website, jcch.com. Please, we will be doing another film screening on Tuesday night and another film screening at Ward Theater on November 10th. But if you have any questions, any information, like any additional information, please feel free to get in touch with us. We need your help on this important project. This is part of our history. This is our story to tell and preserve. Thank you so much for coming today.